Hi everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Lauren, and today I'm going to be talking about 8 3-star books that I actually love. Ask any booktuber how they rate books and they're going to give you a different answer. It seems like it's pretty common for booktubers to just simply rate on enjoyment. I am not one of those booktubers though. For me, I have to kind of break it down into a couple of different categories in order to come up with the rating for a book. A few of the things that I am judging a book on, that I'm rating a book based on, include the quality of the writing, the overall concept and the execution of that concept, and the significance of the story. That could include the themes, if they speak to me on a personal level, or if it's just a story that sticks with me for whatever reason, or I'm not even sure why it sticks with me, but basically just how it affects me personally. So a book for me can fail in any of those 3 categories and be wildly successful in the other 1 or 2, which might add up to me actually loving the book. Today I just want to talk about a few books that overall had some pretty big problems big enough to not even get them over the 4-star mark, but in 3-star territory, but I still loved them. So I'm going to go over those with you, why they did not get a higher rating, but also why I still love them anyway. So I think that's enough explanation for all of this. Let's hop right in and talk about some 3-star books that are great. All right, first up we have Warcross by Marie Lu. I'm going to try to hold this in some sort of position that won't blind everyone. Maybe I'll set it back here. All right, that seems good. Warcross is set in a sort of dystopian world, a futuristic society, almost kind of cyberpunk, a world where there is a game called Warcross. It's a VR game and everyone is just sort of plugged into it, and it is illegal to bet inside of this game. So the story follows a young woman named Amika who is a bounty hunter, and she tries to catch people who are betting on Warcross. So why wasn't this book more to me than a 3-star? First of all, the main character, Amika, she is supposed to be a pretty impoverished character. However, her character has, I don't know, maybe this is splitting hairs, no pun intended, but her character has this very elaborate hairstyle that is talked about repeatedly throughout the book, and it is a hairstyle that would be extremely expensive to maintain. Maybe that's picky of me, but it makes me wonder how Marie Lu, why that didn't occur to her, that made absolutely no sense for that character. And then second of all, the character Amika, she's a coder, she's a developer, and she's able to look at code and blur her eyes and see errors in it, which is incredibly outrageous, like so far-fetched. I had to work a little bit too hard to suspend my disbelief, and because of that, the rating stayed down in the 3-star range. That being said, the feel of this book, like I said, it's like a cyberpunk style of book, which I absolutely love that subgenre. It is about VR and a female in VR who's kind of a badass. The story is very fast-paced, easy to get invested in. I mean, I was instantly pulled into the story. The idea of it, I don't know, it's just fun. It's something I really enjoy. The concept of it, it was excellent. It was never going to be a 5-star for me, but I loved it. All right, next up, another book that is just literary candy for me was Nyxia by Scott Reingen. And this is also a very mirror-y book. I'll just stick that right back there. So Nyxia is the story of, it's a young adult sci-fi novel, and it is about a group of young people who are selected for this special training to go to a planet that has a substance called Nyxia, a very valuable substance. They're being trained to go to this planet to mine Nyxia. This training that they're receiving is extremely competitive because not all of these kids are going to be able to go. They're going to be sort of weeded out. Why I didn't give this book more than a 3-star? A couple of reasons. First of all, because it is YA, it has a lot of just sort of teenager drama in it that I'm not ever interested in, really. Also, I don't think that the character development in this book was that great. I mean, this is the first in a series. I think it's a trilogy. I've read the first 2 books, and of course the characters do become more developed in the second book. I'll only continue in a series about half the time, so that's a pretty good indication of the fact that I actually really enjoyed it. I really love that sort of super competitive school setting. This training that they're receiving is in space. They're on a ship, and that's very just sort of my taste in books. This substance that they're going down to mine has these crazy, they have some of it on the ship, and they're working with it and learning about it, and it has these just crazy cool qualities about it. So many things about this book were great fun, but it just wasn't a 5-star for me. Was it worth the read? Absolutely. Third book on my list is Stormfront by Jim Butcher. This is the first book in the Dresden Files. I haven't continued in the series yet, but I do have the second book and am eventually going to get to it. This is a urban fantasy, and it is the story of a man named Harry Dresden who he's a wizard, but he's also a detective. He takes on various cases with more or less help from like the local police department, and uses his wizarding abilities, his magical powers, to help him sort of solve the cases. There are a couple reasons that this is not higher than a 3. I think I actually may have given this book a 3.5 star just for the sheer delight I felt while reading it. But the reason it wasn't any higher than that, first of all, it's kind of cheesy. I mean, it's undeniably cheesy. I've heard that it becomes less so over the course of the series, but this first book, it's just kind of silly in a lot of ways. And also the character of Harry Dresden, he is ridiculously misogynistic, and depending on your personal sensibility, your sensitivity to that, it may or may not work for you. The reason that I love this book so much in spite of it is because well, first of all, it's in a genre that I love, which is urban fantasy. If you love urban fantasy and your threshold for misogyny is fairly high, this may be a really fun book for you to pick up. The idea of it is so fun. The feel of it has a sort of noir quality to it. Harry, although he's kind of a jerk, you kind of can't help but feel sort of bad for him. He's a little bit of a mess as a person in his life. Though he is intensely misogynistic, he's also kind of endearing. I hate that I love him, but I kind of love him. It was just an all-around fun book. It was never going to be 5 stars for the reasons that I gave, but still, yeah, I loved this book. The Echo Room by Parker P.V. House. This book has insanely low ratings, and I understand it. It's about a character who wakes up inside of a building, doesn't know where he is or who he is or what's happened, how he got there, and there's someone else in this building with him that he has no idea who they are. There are some things that happen in this book that they're very, very cheesy. No 2 ways about it, just super cheesy. And also the book has some pretty intense plot holes that are hard to overlook. I make no excuse for that. Those are just facts about this book. However, I absolutely loved this book because, first of all, it plays off my favorite trope, which is the memory loss trope. And second of all, the characters in this have to like really fight for survival, and that pulls me right in. The sense of disorientation that this book evoked, it's hard to find books where authors are able to do that well, and I feel like Parker P.V. House did with this. The feeling I had like wanting to know what was going on, I could not quit turning pages. Despite sort of the cheesiness of some things that happen in this book and the plot holes, this was just a great time for me. I mean, don't get me wrong, the issues it did have were significant. Were absolutely significant. This was nowhere near a 5-star. This was nowhere near a 4-star. But the fun I had reading this made it worth every second of it for me. Like, 3-star book that I just absolutely loved. Next up, we have The Anomaly by Michael Rutger. This is a story of a man he's almost kind of like an Indiana Jones type of character who is going to film this documentary series. He takes this group of people up into, I think like the Grand Canyon maybe, in search of this cavern up somewhere in the wall of the Grand Canyon that I think supposedly like an expedition that had gone there in the early 1900s got lost in this cavern or something to that effect. It's been a couple of years since I've read this one, so I'm probably messing that up a little bit. The reason this book did not get a higher rating for me was a couple of reasons. First of all, the characters in this book were more like caricatures of actual people. They did not feel real to me at all. And also the writing was a little bit clumsy. That being said, this book, the feeling I had the whole time I was reading this book was just like, what is going on? Like, what the heck is going on? What is this? What is this cave? What is this? What is happening? It was so weird and so spooky, like this cavern turning against these people and the strangest things happening inside of it. I absolutely could not put it down. Though it wasn't a 5-star book for me, this was an incredibly good time, and I will never forget my experience reading this book. It's been years, but I still think of it with like a lot of fondness. It's never going to be more than a 3-star for me because of the reasons that I listed, but still it was great. It was a great time. Last up, we have got The Library at Mount Char by Scott Hawkins. This book, I don't even know where to begin trying to describe this book. I don't even know what genre or genres this book would fall under. This is if you've read this before, please tell me down below, what genre or genres do you think this is? This is about a group of people who live in a house. The head of the house is a man that they all call Father. And all of these people, I think it's about a half a dozen people, they each have very unique abilities. It's been long enough since I've read it. I can't remember specifically what all of those abilities are, but they are kind of magical in nature. They are very isolated from the real world. Honestly, this book kind of reminded me in some ways very vaguely of the movie Midsummer. I would be curious if you would agree with that or if you see where I might get that from. It has this almost kind of cultish quality to it. The whole plot hinges on this character, Father, the character that they call Father, having vanished. And I think that if I recall correctly, they're all trying to figure out what happened, what's going on. It's a very, very complex and convoluted storyline, and I mean that in a very loving way. I actually really, really enjoyed this book. Not 5 stars worth of enjoyment, but it was a great book. The main reasons that I did not give this book higher than 3 stars, first of all, the ending was not for me. I feel like that for me, the ending was a little bit out of left field, and also the pace of the book was a little bit off for me. But setting those things aside, this book is fantastic. It has excellent ratings. If you haven't read it, according to the ratings, you more than likely would like it, but you know, it depends on how you feel about the ending, of course, if it's your kind of ending or not, and how you feel about the pacing. That's just personal taste. There are some scenes in this book that are the tension is so high. They are so, I was so much on the edge of my seat while I was reading this book. I mean, it wound up being, you know, my rating is it's a 3-star book for me. However, there was at one point in the middle of the book, I was just like, this has got to be the greatest book that I've ever read, because the way that the suspense was built and the sequence of events, it was just a masterpiece in so many ways. It was also such an incredibly unique and well-conceived plot, no doubt about it. I've never read anything even almost like The Library at Mount Char. It was just an excellent concept, top-notch, 5 stars for the concept of it. I feel like I will get more out of it a second time around. It's such a strange idea and such a strange book, such a strange plot, that I feel like a second read through would actually do me a lot of good. I would be very curious to see if I would still give it that same rating if I read it again. So I think that is going to be it for me today. I would be curious to know if you have read any of these books and what you thought about them. Also, if you have any 3-star books that you've read that you gave 3 stars, but you love them nonetheless, I would absolutely love to talk to you about it in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, I hope that you will like it and possibly subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.